Firing a car up for the first time is always a big deal, but for most of us it doesn't happen in the middle of the SEMA show.
It's like 9 o'clock Thursday night at SEMA. It's shooting flames out the side pipes. A crowd is just like swarmed us. I'm cursing, yelling just for joy. We did it. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. Just the sheer joy of we're saved.
Welcome to What Moves You, a Speedway Motors podcast telling the stories behind the cars and the people who build and drive them. I'm Joe McCullough, and in this episode, Kyle Kuhnhausen joins us to talk about building cars and his business, Kuhnhausen Metal Concepts. He won the SEMA Young Guns Award with his Datsun 240Z project and has since built some incredible cars, all with his signature passion for detail in every component. I always like to start with the question asking how you first fell in love with cars.
It's I didn't really ever have a choice. From a super young age, there's one thing comes to mind is there's a picture of me in a diaper as, a very young baby, and my dad's holding me, with his 90s haircut and his mustache over his Chevelle air cleaner. And I just, I look back and I see that and I go, yeah, well, it was kind of meant to be because that's how it's been since. But I was just always, followed my dad around the shop, and that's kind of, that switched at one point. Now he kind of follows me around the shop here, but that's just kind of been life. It's been a good life too. I'm super grateful every day for the opportunity to be involved in something that I'm really passionate about, and, something he's really passionate about. And it's made it super easy to just love cars and be around cars, and I can't imagine doing anything else.
How did you get from little kid in the diaper sitting on the air cleaner to learn how to fabricate and actually do the work of building the cars?
It was a natural progression. Obviously, like I said, I was always following him around and, stealing or otherwise misplacing his tools on him. And eventually, we'd work. I mean, he was great in always involving me in whatever he was doing too, or, giving me a fool's errand to keep me busy. And that's only backfired a few times when I pulled the plug out of the hydraulic cherry picker once. Just a few missteps. But at some point, I want to say it was middle school, like 7th, 8th grade. I'd always seen him MIG weld stuff, and I wanted to weld, and he was busy. He was always building. He runs a collision business, his own business, and then he was always building hot rods. So he was either working on one of him and his business partner's race cars, or at home, building a car for a buddy or working on one of his. But he was busy, and I wanted to learn how to weld, and like 2 days or something, I'd asked him, and he was just, was too busy. And now I totally get it. But as a kid, I'm like, I want to weld. So I came home one day after school. There was a period, if I wasn't in sports at the time, I'd have some time I'd always obviously come up to the shop, but I saw there was a spaceship movie at school or something, and I was all into rockets for a little bit. And so I came home, got the MIG welder fired up, seen him do it, 1,000 times, kind of knew where to put the knobs, and went to town and built this little spaceship out of some scrap pieces. And I was real proud of it, and I hid it from him. And I think at one point it was found out that I was welding without him, and, that's probably not the safest thing to have a kid just loose welding, and so then he kind of taught me and took the time, and, that kind of segued into me helping him more thoroughly on the cars. And, if we needed to strip chrome on some rods or something, I just vividly remember we were working on a 42 Willys Woody for a friend, and that was the first one where I really got involved, and I was grinding down the exhaust, MIG welding some stuff on the exhaust, and the progression of hot rods over the last, you got to think back, this is darn near 20 years ago. It's gotten to almost a stupid level of precision, and that wasn't always there. So, you used to be able to use a MIG welder on an exhaust and stuff, and that was fully acceptable. But, I was doing that, and that kind of moved into, getting your license and driving and having cars. Obviously, at 12, I got a wrecked Honda Prelude my dad bought that was totaled, and we built it up together. And so I always respected the car because I had to build it, and that's kind of how I spent all my time, was working for him in summer, spring, and winter breaks full time. And then, hey, you make money, and then you can use the money to buy car parts. And so that kind of kept me out of trouble my whole life. I always wanted to work because I always had goals of buying tools or car parts or building the business. But anyways, I kind of would start like in high school building tube bumpers and roll cages and boat towers. And my dad had $100 Harbor Freight pump bender, really crude. And I had almost perfected, as good as you can use that machine. I would semi-wet down some sand, pack the tubes, cap one end, slam it into the ground about 100 times until it was as compact as it could get, cap the other end, and then I would count my pumps on the thing on like a floor layout, and that's how I'd bend stuff. And I did roll cages, tube bumpers, tailgate tire racks, a boat tower, so actually a couple boat towers. And, I had that process as good as you could do it. And I was just, happy to be building stuff, and learned lots of ways to not do stuff, learned some ways to do stuff. And I think that time getting into fabricating really, once like I knew that was what I liked to do. And then at some point, went to college, business school, found out mechanical engineering wasn't necessarily for me, so switched to business. And then I kind of went to SEMA one year. I think it was 2015 was the first year I started going, and that's like a pinnacle moment when things changed for me, and I saw the quality and the processes, and I just went, that's what I'm doing. And that was kind of my pursuit from that point on, was just not perfecting, because that's basically impossible. And that's what keeps it fun, is the knowing that you'll never actually reach a point where you know it all, or you can do it all the best. And so it's always a challenge, and I need a challenge. Like I need to be chasing something. And so with SEMA, like, 2015, 16, 17, like I was always like, that was my goal. I was going to do it. There was no parachute. That was option A, B, C, D, and F. And so it was kind of a, pretty level torque curve up the road of, fabricating. And nowadays it's still the same. It's, you can never really reach the top of that mountain. And so you can always get better. And that's kind of my pursuit, is the knowledge, and just always trying to do things just a little bit better, or a little bit cooler, or, solve this problem with just a little bit, better than I could the day before. And that's kind of led me to really go down some pretty serious rabbit holes.
Well, and that sort of aspiration to perfection, I think, that drives a lot of people. Anybody who makes anything, you're always, as soon as you're done with it, that you could have done it better, and you want to build the next one to prove it to yourself.
Yeah, it's almost an immediate. It's before you even really finish the car, you could pretty much scrap it. And that's why I'm so thankful that I build cars for clients, because they love it when it's done, but by the time it's done, like, I put so much of myself into it, and I've learned so much that I can never be really that happy with it. And that's kind of why, after 2 or 3 outings or showings of one, I'm kind of ready to, that one's seen its time, it's done, people have seen it, it's great. I need to get busy and do the next one and show people what, where I progress to. I just get so bored of it. I don't really do it for the cars per se. It's more for the craft.
And then how did you get to the business side of it? How did you get from being a fabricator to running your own business doing that kind of work?
It's funny. You can put the best laid plans into action, but things usually just kind of happen. It's kind of been my experience. I went to college out of high school, did a year in mechanical engineering, decided I'm more hands-on. I don't want to sit behind a computer my whole life, and went to business school. Thought you had to go to business school and start a business. If I could go back, I'd probably have went to a trade school, but you got to learn somehow. Got my degree, graduated, went to work for my dad at his collision shop as a collision tech, just till I figured out where I wanted to work, or and then a gentleman that was a friend of my dad's came to him with this Datsun 240Z, and he wanted to have it refreshed, and he'd had the car since his days in college, and he had a younger son and younger daughter, and maybe they wanted to bond with this car. So my dad was at a point in his career where he's kind of done it. He's built a successful business with his business partner. He's built all kinds of hot rods, had all kinds of race cars. He doesn't really need to work for other people. He could work on his own projects, and enjoyed just, he'd finally got to a point where he didn't have to work on anything. But he's like, hey, my son's just graduated, and he likes this stuff. He's, wants to build cars, and maybe he could do it for you, and I'll just kind of, check in and make sure stuff's going well. And so we sat down, had a meeting. Dennis was the owner. He's just a super, salt of the earth guy, just a great guy. And then, that was it. I started a business to build that car because, you can't have an income and not pay taxes on it. So I just made an LLC real quick, and even the name Kuhnhausen Metal Concepts, it was like I had to come up with a name that day. I always thought about, hey, I'm going to make the perfect name. And then it's like, well, I need to put something on this piece of paper today. What am I going to do? And so, I've thought about changing it here and there, but it's just me. It's all good. But so, that's kind of how my business started story, and it's still going. I started that unofficially kind of 2013, and then by I think January 1st, 2014, it was all paperwork, set in stone. And that's about 2019, 2 months out from SEMA is when I went full time. And that's all I've been doing since, is building hot rods here in my garage.
So was the Z the first one that you completed?
That was the first full tip to toe build where I'm in charge. I'm project manager, builder. There's several cars before that. There's a 72 pickup, a Jeep Scrambler, my dad's 70 Camaro, but I hadn't done it in like a professional capacity all the way through to completion. So that was the first, big one, and it went big.
Well, so that takes us to SEMA 2018. Was that the debut of the car?
That was the SEMA debut of the car.
Okay.
I had finished it, like I say, I'd been working on it since 2013, outside of my day job, which was a full-time auto body, collision tech flat rate. And so I'd work on that. I'd get home about 5:30, and I'd work on that till minimum 9 at night, if not, usually more like 10, 11, every weeknight. Weekends were awesome because I could start at about, 8 a.m. and work clear through to 9, 10, 11. And then that's kind of when I would catch up, and I'd spend my lunch hour every day making phone calls, working parts, trying to bring marketing things together. SEMA was always the goal, and I always knew I needed some pretty good partners if I was going to get there, because I'm a nobody. Nobody knows who I am. I just know that I'm going to build this car, and it's going to be on caliber for that, because that's my mission in life. And that's how that went down, is I was just working nonstop. There was a huge buildup. It could have been absolutely nothing. I could have got to the end of it. It would have been a sweet car, but it could have, the SEMA thing was I put all the marbles on that. But I guess to get back on track, before that, I had been, I had that car done a few months prior to SEMA, and I'd been to the Pleasanton Good Guys. That's where I got my SEMA golden ticket. A gentleman by the name of Mike Robledo and Ira Gabriel, I met them there. They were at that time running the Battle of the Builders program. And it's actually a really funny story. I I found out like 3 days prior that I'm just thinking, racking my brain, how do I get to SEMA? I don't know anybody. I don't know the process. Uh, I, I just don't know. And then like 3 days prior to this event in Pleasanton, I see a thing and it says Good Guys or SEMA Young Guns at Good Guys Pleasanton, any builder 27 and under, and I just went, okay, hey Dad, whether you can or not, I got to go to Pleasanton. I need to get the car trailer. I need to load this car up. And luckily, him and my grandpa Gary, made the trek down with me. But we hauled Bud out of work Thursday at like 5, drove clear through, got to Pleasanton um, really late at night. I drove the whole way because I was just in tune. Like, we're gonna make this happen. It's happening. Whatever I got to do. Friday morning, drive the car from the hotel to Good Guys, drive around, the fairgrounds a bit, don't know what to do, see this big banner that says SEMA Young Guns. I go, hey, that's where I got to be. And I was there first, one of the first cars in there. I park it there and I'm just walking around and these two guys are like, what's that? Who's this? And I went, hey, I'm Kyle. I'm under 27. I'm here for the Young Guns. And little did I know, you had to register and you had to, you couldn't just. I just saw 27 under and thought, hey, that's where I got to be. But anyways, the car's sitting there and I'm pretty proud of it. It was a SEMA caliber car. All the work was, obviously looking back now, I can do much better, but the work was pretty right on for a, kid building a car. Some of the others showed up and, the build obviously stood out. And I think those guys kind of went to bat for me to make sure, like, this kid kind of earned it. Let's see to it that he makes it to SEMA. And so finally, they gave me the golden ticket to that event. I think 2 weeks later, I went down and Aaron from Radium Engineering, one of my literal very first sponsor company that believed in me and was like, hey, we like what you're doing. Can we give you some stuff, to help your build? He pulled some strings to some people he knew at Hoonigan, and he's like, talked to this guy, got an invite, took the car down there. Thought that was like huge. That was a pretty cool experience. And that came out, what I filmed with them came out like 2 or 3 weeks before SEMA. So it made some nice hype for me. And then finally, some of these cold emails I sent out start coming back in, and the CCW Wheels booth is like, hey, we'll have you in our booth. And so I start calling the SEMA people who just finally got me this trip into SEMA. And I'm like, yeah, I got a space in Central Hall, kitty corner to the Roadster Shop's big unveil. How can you not take that? Like, that's so many more eyes are going to see the car there. And by the, good graces, I got to do that. So first SEMA with a vehicle, super prime placement. And I didn't leave the side of that car all week. I sold that sucker to the moon. Not only am I super enthusiastic about it, my dreams come true. I'm at SEMA, but the reception of the car was just phenomenal, and I wanted to take every opportunity I could. And that's, I judge that program, the whole Young Guns program. But if I could say one thing, it's you got to sell your car. You can't just show up and park it there. Like, you better be tentative. And if your voice is still going by Wednesday, at the show, then you're not doing enough to help yourself out. So not only is it fun and rewarding to, like, that's the first, like, the dopamine explosion is huge because that's the first, like, real reception you get for all your hard work. But it was just really a magical thing. And it was just life-changing, really.
So what exactly happened then at SEMA? What did you come away with after that deal?
A really sore throat, and my mind was blown. But you couldn't plan it or write a better story. Like, this kid builds a car for 5 years on hopes and dreams, actually gets to the show, and then at the show, things just went haywire. It blew up. Everybody wanted a little piece of this thing. And I think at the end of it, I won a Syracuse National Showstopper Award. That's where I met Dave Tucci, just super awesome dude. In fact, I'm wearing one of their shirts right now because it's my favorite. And then won a Gran Turismo Award as well, Best Asian Import, with a LS powered car. I thought that was kind of neat. You got to really sell it and build something special if you're going to have an LS and win an import award at SEMA. And I think really what did that was just my constant presence around the car and just being truly enthusiastic about it. It's not, I was very humble. I didn't think my stuff was that good until, all these people are telling me it is. And, then you got to just kind of gently weight yourself back down to earth. And then, the big granddaddy of them all was I won the Young Guns program. So not only did I make it there, but I won it, and I was very humbled by that. And not to say that I didn't go there with full intentions to do so. That was the game plan from day one. But if I didn't win it, I was going to be just as happy. There was some pretty good competition there. There was some pretty serious builds. And then, that puts you in top. That was the first year of Battle of the Builders where they separated it into the categories. So you had Young Gun, imports, trucks, and hot rods. So no matter what, for the first time, a 27 and under builder is going to get a top 4 spot. And so that was me. And I led the SEMA parade out to the thing. I was the first car, and the whole week was just crazy. I can hardly comprehend it now. It was just, way more than expected. And all it did was make me a lot hungrier to come back and prove it the next year that it wasn't a fluke, and I could do a lot more than just be in the Young Guns program. So that kind of launched the next phase of my career.
So what happened after that? Did your phone start melting?
Somewhat. I mean, you get a flurry of offers to do things from, TV stuff to, magazine stuff to people that want you to build a car for them. And you kind of got to figure out how to weed through what's worth your time and what's not. I kind of made the determination that building is always going to be my focus. I don't want to be a TV personality type person. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not it's not the challenge I need of solving these insolvable problems on cars. I need that. My brain's got to be active. And then, the magazines, I think, are what kind of blew me out of the water was, I got the cover of SEMA magazine. There's a big picture of me standing in joy in front of the car when they announce, Young Gun, because I didn't have any preconceived notion that it was really going to be me. Is this reality? So I was, shocked and teared up a little bit when I vividly remember going and giving Mike Robledo a big old hug, because, he was just my dude. And it was just awesome. It brings back so many good memories.
Well, before we move on, so we're going to move on to then what came next for your business. But I have to ask, I remember the car at SEMA. I didn't know who you were. Mm-hmm. I was there. I think that was my first year going to SEMA, and I was running around for Speedway Motors, taking pictures and trying to cover the event. And I'm not the kind of guy who's going to stop at a 240Z. It's just not my jam. But that thing just ate me up. I kept going back to it, and it made our blog coverage of the event. Mm-hmm. And I kept going back and looking at all the sneaky details, and just the overall effect of the thing was, it was incredible. I'd never seen one like it before. And I just went back and looked. The caption that I wrote under the picture in our blog was that we would just love to take this thing for a rip around the track. So I have to ask, what is it like to drive?
It's a lot of fun. It's a tough job being the guy that has to test drive these things. So it's just a little ripper, like you said. I wasn't a 240Z guy when I built it. It was just my canvas. So I just built the hell out of that thing. Everything had detail. Everything was touched, and it's really important to keep the theme of a car And that theme on that car was everything to the nines. That was all it was. So it really just brought out a lot of, like, I mean, it just refreshed some stuff. It made people enjoy, builds. Like, cars are cool, and the general public, likes the color of the paint and the overall look of the car. But people like me and the people that I really respected, the builder, people that I was looking for, what their thoughts were on it, everybody seemed to like that thing. And that just blew me out of the water, because I've got all these people that I respect so much telling me I did good. And it was a knockout car.
Some people might let winning SEMA Young Guns go to their head. Kyle saw it as an even bigger opportunity to prove himself against some of the best builders in the world. What happened next? You're home from SEMA with all the accolades. Where do you go from there?
Before I even went to SEMA, I already had my eyes on the next build. And, how am I... The goal was always to be self-employed. Taking off as you get going, it's kind of hard. You got to build. This is a highly dependent on your reputation, is hot rod building. So you're only as good as your last car you built. And if you haven't built any cars, you better be real honest and have somebody like you. And luckily I had a gentleman that, did both of those things. So I had the Ballistic Beige Corvette. It wasn't that at that point. It was the 64, Beige Corvette. And I'd already ordered a chassis and sat down and made a build plan. We're doing an LT4. This is going to be my next, I was aging out. I knew the Young Guns thing was like last ditch effort, because I knew I was on the cusp of aging out. And I knew that the unlimited categories, you got the Roadster Shop, Rad Rides by Troy, Cal Creek. I mean, the highlight list is crazy of people that enter that competition. And good luck, holding pace from 1,200 square foot with, pretty limited budgets. You're going to go real quick trying to build that car that you want to. So I was building this 64 Corvette for just a super awesome client. Honestly, probably one of my favorite people on earth, just the best dude. And that was next. Like, I knew I needed to follow up fast. I couldn't just sit around, ride off the momentum of winning all this stuff. You could really easily get caught up in thinking you're just the king and that's it. And you're one and done at 27. That's not a really good career. So I kind of hunkered down, worked a ton of late nights, had that Corvette, fairly carved out. I was still working full time at Fix, my dad's shop. And so I was doing the every weeknight thing. And the difference between the Z and the Beige Corvette is I had a steady girlfriend when I was building Beige, and Z was my life for about 5 years there. So the late nights kind of were tougher, but I was still doing them, and thank God she stuck around. But at like 2 months out, I got the call. Mothers was going to have me in their booth. That's always the big thing, is figuring out what booth you're going to be in. It doesn't matter how many things you've won. It seems it's tough. There's so many good builds and good builders out there vying for that space. Got the call, and that's when things got real. I had about 80 days out to SEMA. I had a car that, it might have been in its first round of primer, but it was, I had about 80 days, and it was about 160 days from, realistic completion. So I didn't ever plan on it, and I'm glad that it happened, because I probably would have never taken the leap of faith. But one day I showed up to work, and my dad said, I think it's time. I think you need to be done working here and go work for yourself and get this car done. And that's what I did. It was kind of a shock that day, and then the next day I was mocking up and building headers here at 7 a.m. And just hit it hard. By the time we got to SEMA, that's probably going to be my ultimate SEMA horror story, is when we got there with that one, because it was late nights. I don't think I slept a wink like the 3 days leading up to actually trailering, going to SEMA. We had a car that was done-ish. It had never run. I could not get the thing to run. It should have fired right up. Just one of those issues, those little gremlins that it's all right. Why isn't it working? Got to see it went, finally came to peace with, hey, there's lots of cars at SEMA that don't run. That's just in the cards this year. Get to SEMA, unload the car at the mother's booth. First thing the guy that runs the booth says is, this thing doesn't run. We don't have cars that don't run. And I said, it'll run. I promise it'll run. And just pulling a card out of the back pocket there. And luckily, I had befriended Dave Tucci and Dom the previous year, 2018, when I got that Syracuse National Award. And lo and behold, here come my boys walking around, and I'm, telling them the problem, and they connect me with this guy, Alex Pites Performance Tunes. He comes and looks, thankful for him for his time. Can't figure out why not. He calls the people over at GM Performance. It was Tim Duran and Kevin Sherwood. I still remember it because I still owe them a care package. I said I'd send it. Haven't been able to get them on the phone since. Haven't been able to find their address. Someday I'm going to get them back for helping me. But they came by, spent countless hours. I mean, that's all I did at SEMA that year. I was by the car because I was working on the darn car. Electrical gremlins are the worst kind, especially when there shouldn't be one.
Right.
Get that thing. I'm at like, ready to come to Jesus here Thursday. They can't figure out what's wrong with it. They've got insider information, schematics. The one guy, I think, designed or was a part of designing the wiring on the LT5. Like, these are the creme de la creme of smart people, and nobody can figure it out. And just on a whim, when it's nighttime, the mother's people had been letting us. They closed their booth down pretty tight at like 5 or 6. They'd been letting us just work in there because this car needs to run, and I'm kind of on the line, and I feel like my whole reputation's on the line. Like, these guys will never have me back. Nobody will ever have me in their booth if this car doesn't run out of here. And so we just stayed on it the same as we always do, and thank God for my pops, and my fiance was there too, so she's just sitting, watching this all unfold, and it was just a plug. One of the GM harness plugs just had enough resistance. It's plugged in right. It's locked in. Anyways, a quick wiggle of faith, and my dad wasn't even going to do it. And I said, just crank it, just see what we got no other options. Damn thing fired up. It's a straight piped LT4 through titanium side pipes. And it's, first fire up is, running rich. It's shooting flames out the side pipes. It's like 9 o'clock Thursday night at SEMA. A crowd is just like swarmed us. I'm cursing, yelling just for joy. Just, we did it. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. Just the sheer joy of, we're saved. We can get through the SEMA parade. So that car's first test miles were the SEMA parade in Las Vegas Boulevard, and it made it back to the hotel somehow. So it's that's cutting it close.
Yeah.
I vouched to never do that again because I'm pretty sure that I took about 5 years off my life in stress. And so now it's like, if the car's not, I've done it. I did the Young Guns, backed it up with the hot rod. That year it didn't, I competed, battle the builders, nothing happened because, and rightfully so, the car wasn't ready. And I didn't, I don't expect to win everything every time I go. That's just not realistic. So I came back to the shop and spent my time working on the details like I do. And then COVID hit. SEMA got canceled for 2020. And they did the virtual Battle of the Builders thing. And it was two of my idols, Mike and Jim Ring, were the judges. And I just entered to be part of SEMA. I'd already taken the car. I didn't think, anything would come of it. I just thought, hey, I'll be involved. SEMA's a good organization. I like to support what they're doing. I get a call like, a few weeks later, hey, you made top 12. And I remember it. I'm like, are you kidding me? Mike and Jim Ring voted me in the top 3 hot rods.
Mm-hmm.
And the other 2 are that year's Riddler winner. And Andy Leach from Cal had that CUDA, some heavy hitters. So I was very humbled to be a part, and I don't even know how, it was a hell of a Corvette build, but we didn't. I bootstrapped the interior together just because the client didn't really want a wild, crazy, expensive interior, and but like you say, the stuff you saw in the Z, all that mechanical intricacies and detail and little touches that are personal, and just everything done as best as I can possibly do it. Like that car had a lot of innovative, cool stuff on it. The through the frame brake ducts. There's so much to talk about, and it felt good to not be a one-hit wonder on that, and every time it seems like it kind of, you go up and then you level out, and then you go up and you level out, and then hopefully, I've got 3 more in the tank right now that each and every one of them is made with the sole purpose of being, the pinnacle of what I can do right now, and it gets a little better each time. So I've got a feeling that they'll be received pretty well when they're done and I release them into the world. So we'll just see what happens.
The Ballistic Beige Corvette project had kind of a twist ending, right?
You could say that, yeah. It's what had happened was, like I said, when I first met this guy, he was already one of my favorite guys out. Just a genuine, pure good person. Just somebody that really appreciates all that hard work that goes into the cars. It's one thing to say, "Wow, that's cool, thank you." It's another thing to genuinely understand like how much of myself and my life I put into the stuff I do. But he, we got it done. Got back from SEMA, spent several months getting every detail just perfected, and then gave it back to him, and he enjoyed it for a while. His mobility was not the best, and we actually built that car. The driver's footwell is 1.5 inches lowered, 4 inches pushed through, so he didn't have to bend his legs too much to get in, and from what I understand, he loved it. It wasn't great for him to be driving these old hot rods anymore too much, and so he called my dad up and just made him an offer he couldn't refuse to buy that sucker back, and I'll be damned if he didn't do it. So now we kind of have a family heirloom of one of the hot rods that I built. Obviously with my dad I built it, and it's just really special that way because I didn't think we could ever have something like that. That's quite a financial commitment to build something like that, and then to make a deal where we could actually afford to get something like that back is, crazy. And so now it's in the garage. I can go look at it whenever I want. It's like I said, I kind of get bored with them after a while. I'm always on to the next one, but someday I'll go back through that one and do a few of the things I would have done. Definitely needs a manual gearbox. Might change the wheels a little bit. There's a few things, but overall the identity of that car, I've got nothing to complain about. It was nice to do things unique that I wouldn't have done had the client not, put their 2 cents in on a few things, and it made it unique. Like the color choice, the wheel choice. It wasn't a red, white, blue, or black Corvette on, Halibrands or heaven forbid the 20-inch whatever Barrett Jackson special stuff. Because it had its own identity, and so I really like that about it.
Does your dad still help you out in the shop?
Oh yeah, more and more as I need him. He still runs his business, but he's here with me most weeknights and weekends, and we're just jamming. It's way easier for us to just specialize a little bit. He kind of handles, body stuff, and I handle the mechanicals and handle the fabrication, and it's a really nice pairing. We can get a lot of stuff done together, way more than we can get, done separated. So I've always worked really good with my dad. Like I could not work with another person on earth as well as me and my dad work together. So it's you see the typical like hot rod shows where they're fighting and throwing chairs and stuff, and sure there's some exchanges here and there, and some differences in opinion, but for the most part, I mean, it's a special thing we have. I don't think everybody gets to enjoy what we enjoy.
That's cool. I'm jealous that you get to do that.
Yeah, he's quite a talented guy too. You got to give Pop some props. He is if there's one person on earth that I'd call if I was in a big situation like we were in SEMA, I want to have him fighting by my side there, because there's no problem too big. We'll figure it out.
You've mentioned a couple already. What other builders do you cite as influencing the cars that you build?
We'd be here for two weeks straight if I was to list them all off, but some kind of back to those early SEMA days, when I really got my eyes opened, and before that I like to look at like trophy truck forums and just see all that wild fabrication and tube coping and exotic materials. And I read one article in Hot Rod magazine, and I still have it. It's like fallen to bits because it was like the favorite magazine article I ever read, and it was like 14 fabricators shaping the future or something. But it was just like the goal. It's like, that's where I want to be. Like I want to, if they ever remake that, I want to be a candidate. Cause that's what I strive for every day, is just being to that level. So obviously you got like Roadster Shops builds, the Jeremy and Phil and the boys over there do some phenomenal innovative stuff. They're always on the cutting edge, and like the Rampage Camaros, obviously that's my favorite build of all time that I haven't done. I was actually building a 70 Camaro when that came out, and it was wide bodied and it had a square 345 setup, and I shelved it because you got to know when to hang it up and go. Right. It's maybe down the road in like 2 decades I'll have enough skill to make what I want out of that to a level where, it would even impress me after seeing Rampage. That was like a life-changing build. But you got obviously Troy, Rad Rides, Andy, Calotto, the Ring Brothers. Clearly, and what I like about them is they're two nice, humble guys, but you look at a car and you go, that's a Ring Brothers build, whether or not it's got the logo on it. They've always stuck to their guns on style. They've always kept their unique details, and I think, and it's always done to the highest level. Like it's kind of like the brand name. Like, do you pick the brand name serial or the one that mimics it? Like you go right for a Ring Brothers build, and you're going to get the real deal. So I cherish their example there. And that's kind of one that I'd like to follow is, stick to my guns, do it my way. If it's cool, great. And I hope it is. And I'm just going to build cars, the Kyle Kuhnhausen way. And instead of, I emulate a lot of people, but I try to do it my own way, independently, kind of like the Ring Brothers do.
For pictures of Kyle's Datsun, the Ballistic Beige Corvette, and more, check out the toolbox at speedwaymotors.com by clicking the toolbox link on the front page. New episodes of What Moves You come out every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. If you like what you hear, tell a friend to listen to What Moves You on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. If you were going to describe your style, kind of speaking of that, how would you describe it?
Detailed. It's an onion, and you got to peel it back, because I put details everywhere. It doesn't matter if it's seen or not, and I do it because I love to. Like I don't build cars for the general public to consume. I build them for me to consume, and it's like I want to see this really neat wiring, and I want to see the plumbing, consistent throughout. Every single thing is this type of, hydroflow, double O-ring, clamshell fitting, um, all the engine. I smooth all casting, and it's all done by hand. It just slick, clean, neat. You'll never find a big gaudy cover on anything I do. No engine, I love the systems of the car. That's like what drives me, is like, how can we make the systems of this thing work better? And function is always like goal number one. Aesthetics are second. But you can have both if you really try. And so I like to, it's always a challenge, like to make it function really well, make it extremely serviceable, because I have to fix these things if they go wrong, or I have, if a client calls, I don't want it to be, I want to be able to talk them through it if it's a simple thing.
Right.
Or, at least when it goes to a shop to be fixed, most of the people I build for are not local. It can, they're going to say, hey, this is nice work that made that really easy. Like, hey, the motor can drop out from the top or bottom. I didn't have to disassemble the whole nose of this car to work on it. So I think about how things are serviced a lot and how I put them together. And I think that adds cool details, like the quick release latches on, service electrical panels and things like that. And so that's kind of my style, is just like paying respect to the systems of the car, while trying to keep a theme throughout of doing my absolute best. Like, you're not going to find any plain Jane brackets. You're not going to find a lot of utilitarian stuff, because I take the time, and God knows I love my speed holes. So it's sometimes I joke, it's like, well, I haven't hit the flared hole quota on this one just yet. I better bump it up. But that's just my style. It's, a little bit of aviation inspiration, just trying to do things the best I can and not be lazy, and build cars that are, if you could take every single part off that car and set it on a coffee table and it would be interesting. That's how you build a cool car. It's the water pump on that LT4 Corvette that you see sitting behind. I mean, it's a decast converted to, clamshell hydroflow. It's beautiful. You could set it on a coffee table, but in the car, you might see 1 square inch of the damn thing. But it makes the car like that. That's a pinnacle part for me. And so that's kind of, I guess I just look at things maybe differently than, I want to build hot rods. It's like, I want to build a cool component. Like, it's a component level thing. So.
You do a really good job on social media promoting yourself. And that, that's something where a lot of builders just want to build cars. They don't want to fool around with the promotional social media aspect. Do you enjoy doing that part of it?
If I didn't have to do it, I wouldn't do it as much. But as a small shop, that's the best marketing you can do, because I can't afford the big, magazine ads. And so that's something where I can, interact with the people that are into what I'm doing, share knowledge. I mean, it's where I get a lot of inspiration. So I like to try to give back what I can. And then, you never know who's watching. Like, I've found clients based off of, this post I made. And it's like every time you make one, it's a business card, so make sure you're proud of it. Make sure you give it its due time, and write out a caption that actually, explains something. And, the TikTok stuff is a little different. That's like the new, I started that because I had a company I work with that wanted some content over there. And I thought, well, I'll give you content. I don't know, if it'll do any well. And it kind of did pretty well to get going. And now I'm starting to like it a little bit more and take it a little more seriously. But overall, like, the Instagram format's more for me, where I can show pictures, and it's fun to share that. And there's like several people on there that I like to follow and just see what they're up to, because they do innovative things. And I hope people can feel that way about some of the stuff I do. And, sometimes it's overwhelming. Like, you try to post every day and, stay on the algorithm, or, keep it happy so you can grow. I'm competitive, really competitive. So it's like kind of like a game. Like, well, everything needs to be growing all the time, because, the more massive people and quality people, especially, that you can forecast to, the more companies that you look attractive to when you're hurting for parts on a build, and you know, you need to make it meet with some partnership parts. But overall, it's kind of fun, and it's good to take the time and reflect on what you're doing, and it's really cool to see. Like, I get lots of people go like, hey, that was really cool, thank you for sharing that. I see all of it. I'm really not the best about answering the DMs and stuff, just because I'm really busy. Like, unless it's like a really detailed, like, one, every now and then I try to go back through them, but it's kind of overwhelms me sometimes too. So it's like, I hope people understand that I'm not being rude. I'm just like, I'm here for business. I'm really just trying to keep the content flying for you, and I do see it, and I appreciate everybody that you know, tries to reach out on that. And I try to get back to people, but I'm not the best at it. I'm a one-man show here. I got to wear a lot of hats. So if I'm on the phone, I'm not working.
You want to talk about current projects that you're excited about, ones that you can talk about anyway?
Yeah, absolutely. The lineup right now is the Banana Boat, which is a 55 Bel Air. I've kind of dubbed that like a modern nostalgia, because it came to me. It was never supposed to go where it's going right now. That's a common theme. And it's had some work done that stays, that I would have probably not done, but it also, like, it's an opportunity for me to step out of my comfort zone. And because my personal pocket is like race car pro touring to a point. I don't think any car should have a stereo in it, but
I agree.
I also don't think any car should be yellow, but the Banana Boat is, and that's why it got the silly name at first. It was that or the Banana Hammock, and so we took the PG route there. But you know, over time I get immersed in these things, and then I fall in love with it. You know, odd cars, and I was never supposed to like this car, but as I got building up this big block, you know, it's got the big 671 blower, it's got the dual Holley, you know, 4-barrel throttle bodies. It's EFI, and kind of retrofitting the old scoop, you know, and incorporating some nostalgia parts, the moon pedals, but doing it in a way like that's not where I'm from, so I don't really know that space very well. So I'm just doing my interpretation of it, and I think it ends up with like a unique end goal. It's got the headers like a gasser may have, but you know, they're done in a way like I do my pro touring stuff. It's just cool. It's a cool opportunity to expand on you know, my knowledge and what I think is cool, and I've actually grown to really love it. That kind of segues me into the old 2020 Dart.
The Dart.
Not my first candidate for a car to build, nor probably anybody's. But I took it on as a challenge. You know, can we make this thing cool? Sure, we can make anything cool. All it takes is time and money. And this one is, I'm building that for my grandfather. He's a client, but at the same time, like, I've got one way I build things, and it's not generally the economic way. It's the build it the best I can build it way. So I've been, you know, that's kind of more like a pro bono job. It's kind of like that Z, which I said I'd never do again. But I'm in love with, I see the end result, and I know it, you know, people will absolutely go nuts over this thing when it's done, almost as much as I'll go nuts over it when it's done. Cause I get to, when you take the strings away and you let me just do what I do, you know, it's fun. It's not work. It's play, and I'm just having fun with that car. So, you know, it's everything that I would do to a car is what you see there. And the same with that Insanity Z is, you know, there weren't any strings. I could just kind of, you know, if I have an idea, I'll share it. And generally the answer was, yeah, go explore that. So, you know, I developed the cantilever push rod suspension on the Dart, the bladed sway bar. I'm working on the 180 degree headers, the fully heat extracted, crazy PWR radiator system. So it's basically a race car with a license plate. It's got a manual transmission, which is always good in my book, and I'm just having a lot of fun with it. So I've seen the end rendering. It's really going to be something I'm proud of, and it ties back to that. My grandpa bought it brand new. He spec'd out the car with a 283 and a 4-speed from Dodge in 64 for my grandma. It's been in the family the whole time. It's been at the bottom of Flathead Lake once. I mean, it's
how did I read that somewhere? You gotta dig in there. I gotta know how the Dart ended up in the lake.
After my grandma was done with it, my dad's brother had the car for a bit, and as the story goes, they ran this. His family ran, I think it's called Blue Bay Resort on Flathead Lake in Montana. He's from Montana, my dad originally, and I guess he pulled the tire. There's the boat ramp, and the Dart's parked up here, and it's inoperable or something, and pulled the tire chuck, and gravity did its thing, and and when the car came in, I could see where that had to happen because everything was just bashed in on there. Luckily, I at the firewall just cut the whole front off that sucker, but it's got a storied history, and now I'm kind of adding my story, and I take a little bit of pride in that last name and making things for the family. So it's going to be nothing short of exactly what I want it to be before it's done. Whether that takes another few years or whether we can muster together some funding and get it done sooner, but it's pretty cool. And then that the Ballistic Beige that was my first Corvette, and I always thought somebody else is going to want me to build them a Vette when they see this and they get it, because a lot of people didn't get it because it's not flashy at all. Like it's saddle tan. I mean, it's unassuming, but if you get close or if you see the chassis on that car, I mean, it's basically a race car. And so luckily I got the call, and a gentleman had called, I believe Art Morrison, who I was working close with. I was great friends with Craig over there. Rest in peace. He was such an awesome guy. He sent the gentleman my way, and he was serious because a few weeks later he showed up, and we went for a ride in Ballistic Beige and had some coffee and discussed the process. And a few weeks later we had a signed contract and building a 66 Vette, and it is everything you can imagine. I mean, it's LT4. It's got a 7-speed BMW dual clutch transmission. I think it's the first pairing of those two, which is absolutely a nightmare for me, trying to find the right people to make all that electronical stuff talk. But I believe I have some competent gentlemen lined up when we're ready. Just dry sump, crazy chassis work, working with Sencut Send. I've got this cross member that makes the oval undercar exhaust. Like every single thing about this I'm proud of. No corners cut. It's just going to be wild. Like the horizontal, it shares a lot of the key features of Ballistic Beige with the LT4. Get rid of the core support horizontal mount radiator so we can actually pack in the right core size to actually cool that LT4. We've got a heat exchanger that's the size of a darn radiator. And that, cooling is like the number one thing you got to do if you're going to drive them. And I see lots of people try to fit a radiator in that tight little Corvette space. And when you throw a big blower on that thing and you go run it in the heat, I tell you right now, those cars aren't going to drive well. So, if the expectation is, hey, I'm going to drive this thing in hot weather where this guy's from, cooling's number one. So huge radiator. On this one, we did the biggest Spalt brushless fan made. It's like over 4,000 CFM or something. I'd like to say it's actually closer to like 45, but I hate to, build that up too much. But anyways, it's crazy. It's wild. And the full undercar exhaust, I always wanted side pipes. Like I'm a side pipe guy. But this, luckily I have a client that has some good taste. He kind of like all these other builds, pushes me just a touch out of my comfort zone, but in a good way. So no side pipes, more of like a gentleman's. It's kind of like Ferrari-esque, like classic, like tasteful. Don't go over the edge, don't be flashy, but do it well.
Mm-hmm.
And so when this thing's done and sitting with the 15-inch Willwood brakes and we're going to do the Forge Line RS6, which is, I hate to.
That's the knockoff one,
Oh yeah,
right?
knockoff for sure.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
got to have tri-bars. The car came with the turbine, so it's got to have knockoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of the deal. But that's I hate to follow the pack after doing the LS3s on Beige, but that is the best wheel for these cars. So we'll have that on there. Again, the huge meaty front tires, big back tires, lots of mechanical grip, full steering. That's a nightmare to try to make work, but it's a good challenge. And I hate to see those like 265s up front, because what good is a corner carving car with 345s or 325s out back when the front's going to let out before those things are even close to capacity. So weight balance is a huge thing in my builds. I like to shoot for like a 53% rear. So the LT4 is actually 4 inches back from stock. It's lower. Ground clearance is still good. It's just really sweating the details on that thing. And then, it's got a pretty good budget, so we can actually stretch the legs and explore new territory. This will be my first one with a full leather custom super sweet interior. It's going to have a stereo, which agree to disagree. I need a job. I can't say no on everything, but it's it's going to be a really cool car, and I'm really passionate about that end result. Looking forward to setting it next to Ballistic Beige and showing everybody what I learned on Beige that I could transfer to this one.
What beyond what's currently in the shop? What are your plans for the future for the business?
3D scanning. That's kind of my mission right now. I'm thinking I've got a C5 Z06 that just sits in the garage on Forge Lines. It was my old daily driver autocross car, and I think I could free up a garage stall and get into a nice scanner debt free, and that's the future. You got to look at where the industry is going, and as much as I appreciate and value old school craftsmanship, you got to involve the new tech too. If you could do a full body scan, like for instance, the 66 grill, like I've remounted the bumpers, they're tucked, they're sectioned, they're beautiful. And then you look through and you see the old bumper mount bracket going through the grill, and you go, it's not like it was made to be like this. We're going to have to fix that. So I'm going to have to either billet machining a huge grill is quite an undertaking. And I don't know if that's kind of the taste I have in cars. That's more like chasing the Riddler. So I'll come up with like a laser cut solution that I can, Cerakote and make look factory, but fit the opening better, get rid of the bumper mounts, keep that really cool 66 grill. But if I had a scanner, I could whip that out pretty nice, convert it over to CAD, convert it into a send laser cut file, get parts, and then do my craftsmanship, welding it together and smoothing it out, and have something that looks super cool for, fraction of, I don't know, a 60-inch piece of billet. So it's it's trying to build high-end hot rods, but do it in a way that's financially responsible. That's always the hard thing to do.
Do you see that being other kind of the future of shops like yours that are doing high-end cars is really leaning in on the tech like that as it becomes more available? Like, do you see that more shops doing that?
Oh, I'm behind the curve on that. It's fully fledged the way it's done at the big boys. So that's what I'm wanting to do is stay on par with that. It's really cool to make a wide body kit, build a mold with foam and shape it and lay it up into molds and then pull apart. But if you could 3D scan that thing, you could cut out a lot of the steps there and come up with cooler things because you can see it in a lot of different ways. And I just feel like the possibilities with that are so endless. And I feel like it would be a great challenge for me, being that I'm not a huge computer guy. I picked up SolidWorks in 2019 because I saw that as the next iteration and learned how to 3D print in-house and CAD model. I'm not the best, but I can get made what I need to make, and I learn every day. And I think kind of the next progressive step in that line is scanning and then building parts to fit that. And the beauty is you can do so many, like you can make so many things. For instance, on this Dart, you can't find headlight bezels or taillight lenses or any of that stuff for them because they were not a popular car. The reproduction market's not that great. But I sent some parts off. We did body work, got the headlight bezels right where we want them, had them scanned by a gentleman at Reversion Raceworks, sent me back the CAD data. I print it here, test it, and it's like, okay, now we can make a mold and make carbon fiber headlight bezels.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that didn't exist, and I can do that in my small shop with, my not as big of funding as the big boys. And it's kind of like the great equalizer is being able to do that stuff. And so if I can do that in-house and get full body scans, I just see that as being, I guess that's, my ADHD brain thinks that's the coolest thing right now. So we're going to make that happen. Mm-hmm. But it, and then I'll be off to the next thing. 5-axis CNC machining is huge and not something that's available around me very readily. So, if we'll maybe work really hard and get into something like that too, and just keep building.
Thanks to Kyle Kuhnhausen for joining us, and thanks to all of you for listening to What Moves You, a Speedway Motors podcast. To see photos of Kyle's projects and everything we referenced in today's episode, visit the toolbox at speedwaymotors.com. Email the podcast at podcast@speedwaymotors.com, and if you like what you heard, tell a friend where to find us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.